Hello everyone, welcome to another Wednesday seminar. Thank you for bearing with us. I don't know what I'm doing with tech, but we got there, we're good. I would like to introduce you to today's speaker, SK Marley. They're going to be doing Our Transcapes, queering British history for transgender well-being. And as a very quick introduction, SK Marley is a trans non-binary creative facilitator, researcher and writer currently studying Mesolithic Archaeology at the University of York. Their background is in storytelling and their interests lie in how storytelling has been, in brackets, used to intercept relationships between communities and their landscapes. As an artist in residence for Queer Natures, SK has collated their interest in a narrative theory, psychogeography and gender justice and prehistory to create Our Transcapes. I will hand over to you.
Thank you. Sorry for such a ridiculous long sentence. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, great. Hi everyone. We're going to, actually, let me just check I know how to, yeah. So we're going to start with a story, a European mainstream media myth that we are told quite frequently at the moment, that transness is something new and something unnatural. And living within this hostile story, trans folk in the UK today are often looking to cultures elsewhere that have different understandings of gender in order to feel valid, such as the Hijra people from India and Two-Spirit peoples from some Native American communities. But these cultures do not have the same context of heteronormativity and queerness that we do. And so to use those cultures for self-justification in the West can feel a little uncomfortable, a little bit colonial. So I've been developing a research project, Our Transcapes, to show that we don't need to look so far afield to justify ourselves. And by exploring prehistoric Britain through a queer lens, we can see that living in non-dual ways, that is, ways that refute binary opposition and static essentialism, is not new or unnatural in Britain. So in my research that I'll talk about today, I seek to highlight how our idea of heteronormativity is just another story rather than the truth. And just like we can't impose that story onto other cultures, we cannot impose it onto people of the past, particularly people in the past who have not left any personal testimony or written documentation. And it's in the deep past, around which we still have more questions than answers, that new stories can be found. And here, in the certainty of not knowing, because we can never know it fully, we have the freedom to explore and play with the archaeological evidence to hand to see just how much trans people do belong in Britain. So hi, I'm SK Marley, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm studying Mesolithic Archaeology, which is the Middle Stone Age, for anyone who doesn't know. And yeah, I'm interested in the political power of storytelling, who gets to be included in cultural stories and who's excluded from them, but also the internal power of storytelling, so narrative psychotherapy, creative writing for well-being, those sorts of things. And for the past 2 years, I've been collaborating with Dr. Ina Linge at the University of Exeter as an artist in residence on her Queer Natures research project, and that's how Our Transcapes came into being. So we're looking to improve the well-being of transgender folks in the UK today by exploring our landscape's transcestry, the incredibly long history of non-duality in these islands. So what does it mean to be in prehistoric Britain, and how can that help challenge our stories of who we are today? So there are lots of binary frameworks that we live by today. Nature, culture, male, female, even alive and dead. And these are not easily traceable binaries in prehistoric Europe. In fact, very often we can quite easily find the opposite. So these two sculptures on the left-hand side, we've got the Lion Man from Germany, around 40,000 years old, and we've got the Lipensky Veer fish people statues around 9,000 years old. And these kind of show that our present day imagined split between culture and nature, i.e. people and everything else, is actually quite a recent idea. And then we have the tens of antler headdresses found in Mesolithic North Yorkshire at the site of Starcar. This is an artist's impression of what it might have looked like to wear one. And these are about 11,000 years old, the headdresses found in Starcar. They're made from stag and roe skulls, so they don't always have horns. And these headdresses were worn either, we think, in hunting rituals or in other kinds of ceremony. And, you know, it brings up around that question of subsistence practices and spirituality, and are these two things actually separate? So many communities across the world today use horned headdresses in spiritual practice. There's a kind of maybe a lazy word that we use, in my opinion, shamans, that kind of brings together a whole lot of very different, varied cultures under one word. But interestingly, some of these spiritual leaders using headdresses in their spiritual practice today are also sometimes gender fluid. They either change gender during ceremony or they live permanently as a gender regardless of their osteological sex. And while we cannot make direct analogies to other cultures when interpreting the past, looking to them can help widen our interpretive lenses and our own limitations here in the West. Perhaps there was a connection between gender non-duality and human-animal non-duality here in the past. We just don't know. But what we can say with some confidence is that these headdresses likely allowed their wearers to temporarily become a human, non-human hybrid for real. What do I mean for real? Well, looking at other artifacts from Mesolithic Europe can shed some light. This is the great Shigir idol found in East Russia. It's Mesolithic as well. It's about 11,500 years old. It's one of the earliest erected monuments, I believe, ever founded in Europe. And we think it would have originally stood around 5 meters high. Inside of its body are combinations of carved geometric patterns believed to have apotropaic or protective qualities, as well as numerous hidden human faces. And it was erected at a boundary between a large woodland and an open plain where people were living. So perhaps this was built to engage with the animate terrains it marks the boundary of. Who knows? But it's not the idol itself that we're interested in here, rather the tools that were used to make it. So these are beaver mandible axes. Very small tools for what is a very large job. And people in the Mesolithic already had, complex tools. They were already making flint axes and antler mattocks for felling trees, digging enormous pits, and other large construction work. So they had other options to use for building something like this. So why use the beaver mandible axe? Well, I think this choice suggests a certain belief that remnants from animal bodies maybe maintained the animal's qualities after that animal's death. So this beaver mandible axe still has the power of the beaver when it comes to woodworking. And what better craft people do we have in nature to inspire prehistoric architects than beavers? Perhaps humans-made tools, even the human-made tools were potentially more practical and easier to use, but maybe that couldn't compete with the other values that maybe animate objects may have represented to people. So that suggests that animal remains may have had animate object biographies, as a writer I can't remember called it, which I really like. If you need to have a link, let me know. So when we look back to our Starcar headdresses, perhaps these could imbue their wearers with the qualities of the dead deer. And if so, then these folks were becoming hybrid beings for real, right? Where the boundary between themselves as a person and the deer they are engaging with through the headdress are blurred, they become a figure of non-duality, an embodied version of the lion man or the fish person. So, moving forward in time, around 2,500 years ago, around the late Bronze Age, early Iron Age, numerous wooden anthropomorphic dolls were crafted across Europe and erected near wetlands, bogs, marshes, that sort of thing. And archaeologists have called these god dollies. Some found in Britain and Ireland are a singular doll representing a single sex with identifiable biological sex markers of one biological sex, such as the Ballachulish goddess from Scotland found near Glencoe. And many dolls found in North Europe come in sexually dimorphic pairs, with each doll representing each of the binary sexes. You can see visibly they look a bit different. The chap on the left here is taller, maybe a little bit more angular, has nipples but no breasts, and a mound at the groin, whereas the lass here has slightly larger nipples, potentially breasts, a bit shorter, a bit curvier, and has some sort of hairdo. And we can see here on the left how these may have looked. I think these dolls were found at in Saxony, near a marsh. So this is a boardwalk that people built to cross over this sort of unpredictable landscape. And perhaps these dolls were erected in order to help people do that in a safe way. And yeah, we've got the chap over here in a sort of boxy shape and a female, more curvaceous figure on the right. However, many god dollies found in Britain and Ireland defy this dimorphism. So on the left, we have the Somerset god dolly. Actually dates back to the Neolithic, this one. And it has both attached breasts and an attached phallus. The Dagenham and Rallihan idols, as well as the Ruskar figures, all have removable phalluses and also have, some of them at least, a V carved into the groin, which for a long time we've associated with vulva in prehistoric art. So their sex is interchangeable. It's another example of non-duality here. And I argue that this non-duality, a bit like the antler headdresses, was purposefully non-dual, potentially in relation to spiritual practice. So god dollies were often erected, as I said, or deposited in wetland areas, places that are also in a state of perpetual in-betweenness. Bogs, marsh, carr, they're all water and land at the same time. They change with the seasons. They're quite unpredictable and fluid. And they also hide what they are made of beneath their surface, which anyone else who has fallen into a bog will know. And all of these qualities sound pretty trans to me. And, you know, in archaeology, I think we've long associated liminal places with places of spirituality, sort of where the boundary between this world and potential other worlds might be thinnest. So, yeah, we've got objects representing transformation being placed in places that are transformative. And over these examples that we've just looked at, we've seen how over thousands of years, boundaries between the realms of the living and the dead, of animacy and inanimacy, personhood, animalhood, sex, and potentially gender were blurred and changeable in Britain's past. All of these artifacts are inseparable from nature. All of them are ancient. And these are exactly what anti-trans mythologies in Britain today say trans people are not. Now, I probably don't need to tell you that this is not a history taught in mainstream schools, nor is it easily discoverable in mainstream non-fiction. And this absence can really impact the ability for trans folks today to feel like they are part of the wider story of what Britain is. So through our Transcapes project, I have tried to craft accessible and engaging ways for trans people to encounter this otherwise hidden history. The project also seeks to contribute towards the limited research in Mesolithic non-duality and also into archaeology for social impact. There is much that this project could potentially tell us, but foremost, I want to know, can creating communal explorations of this history support transgender well-being? And that's needed now more than ever. And in this section, just as a heads up, I'm going to be talking about transphobia, trans hate crime, trans murder, and a little bit of trans suicide potentially. If that's upsetting for you, please do whatever you need to do. Please leave the room. I won't be offended. Do whatever you like. So in April 2025, for those of you who don't know, the UK Supreme Court legally redefined what a woman is, omitting trans women from the same protections as cisgender women in the 2010 Equality Act. This ruling has taken trans rights back significantly in this country and emboldened quite a lot of frightening transphobic rhetoric and behaviour in social spaces. And preceding this ruling was a decades-long campaign by British mainstream media to enforce negative connotations of transness for their readers. This research report by the charity Mermaids shows how much the term transgender was mentioned in association with various negative lexicons by the national press between 2012 and 2018. We see quite a lot of increases across that time. So transgender as a term was made in association with offence words: clash, complaint, dispute, fury, outrage, wrath, uproar, 6 times in 2012, 308 times in 2017. Made in association with conflict words: aggressive, harassment, outspoken, militant, threatening, 3 times in 2012, 415 times in 2018. And crime words, perhaps the most insidious: prison, murderer, rapist, paedophile, jail, 4 times in 2012 and 195 times in 2018. That's not a very long period to see such a lot of change. And on this slide, we will see the impact this has had. Transgender crime rose exponentially, as you can see, from about 400 cases a year to 4,500 a year over that time frame. And even leading to some trans teenage murder, seen in Brianna Gee's murder in 2023 by people at her school. And as we can see on the right-hand side, these are quotes from trans online spaces that I'm a member of. People are clearly internalizing these narratives. And I'll just read a couple of them out because I think they're the whole point of the project. So, when I'm indistinguishable from a cis man, my life can start for real. I might be 50, but it's better than never. I love being trans, but I find myself with this shame a lot, like I won't live a normal life or not feel out of place in a cis-het world, a cisgender heteronormative world. And then this quote is much more recent. This was taken by the Transactual research about basically the fallout of the court's ruling. I felt so ashamed that I avoided using public toilets for weeks. This was written after somebody had an incident of toilet policing, which are getting more aggressive, quite frightening. So we can see the impact basically of these narratives in real spaces for real people. To tackle this, Our Transcapes employs a few different methodologies, mostly queer ecology and queer archaeology, but also ecotherapy, creative writing, and narrative theory to help folks engage with their transcestry in various ways. This hasn't really been done before with archaeology, so I wanted to try a few different things out and see what stuck, basically. So a few different things. But these are just some potentially helpful I wrote these definitions, they're not official, of what queer ecology and queer archaeology might mean. Somebody recently said an interesting thing to me. They said, so your project is decolonizing the colonizer. And that's so interesting because while the West has gone all over the world and kind of tried to remove all of these other ways of seeing gender, we've obviously done that at home as well. So this project is sort of decolonizing Britain. Yeah. So in putting all of that together, I had 3 project goals, as I said, to try and see which ones stuck and were effective. So the first is community building and reducing isolation for trans folks in the real world. Can be quite hard to meet another trans person. They're only 0.4% of the population. It's ridiculous we even have to do this, really. But yeah, so I live in Sheffield. This project was conducted in Sheffield. And so I was just trying to draw together trans folks who might not have met other trans folks before. And many of the participants hadn't met before. So that kind of was really helpful to know. The second goal is helping trans people spend time in nature. Lots of trans folks feel unsafe being outside on their own in public spaces. So this was to try and tackle that. As we know, like with ecotherapy, being outside is good for you. But if you're scared of that and actually it can be harmful for you, then maybe you're missing out on this quite otherwise easy way to feel better about things. And lastly, to increase feelings of belonging, both in identity and in Britain, by exploring this ancestry that we've been talking about. So the project was delivered for the first time with the public in September last year, and I collaborated with my local queer hiking group, Peak Queer Adventures, to do this. So it was open to anyone in the group who identifies under the trans umbrella, which includes people who are questioning or they're gender non-conforming. 13 participants attended, and a full transgender team delivered the day alongside of me. As part of getting ready for the event, I also engaged with some local artists to create some replicas of the objects that we've discussed today. A replica of the Ruskar god dolly and one of the star car headdresses. We also had some lino prints depicting kind of queer archaeological scenes. Here are the champs right here. You can come up and touch them later if you like. Materiality, I've been learning by studying archaeology, is actually really important. I used to be a book guy, but it was interesting through archaeology to learn the importance of materiality. So I wanted to get some real things to bring along with us. And this was basically what we did on the day. So we had a 2-hour psychogeographic wandering through Ecclesall Woods, which is an ancient woodland in Sheffield. It's got various different types of landscapes within a very small space. So I thought, oh, what I'll do is I'll create a route that touches on microcosms of these different periods in history. So like the Mesolithic woodlands, the opening glades of the Neolithic, that sort of thing. It was quite hard to do that, but we tried. And we stopped at these various locations and told stories from these different periods of history that we've looked at already today, trying to bring that history to life with the replicas and the landscapes. Along the way, participants got to get to know each other as a group. A lot of them hadn't met before. They also engaged with the landscape, stopping to identify mushrooms and things like that together. Some participants also shared their own knowledge and ideas of prehistory. Questions and debates were welcomed. It was a non-hierarchical, informal, friendly style delivered event, because I think that's where people can show up as themselves. We then had a whole hour's lunch to share together. People could just have a rest and some time alone if they needed it, or they could socialize further, so whatever they preferred. And finally, in a venue in the heart of this forest, we had an hour-long creative workshop. We began with a mindfulness activity, sort of helping us return to our bodies, which can be a little tricky if you don't like your body. We then had a kind of guided internal dialogue with the artifacts. And this was where I was trying to bring in some narrative psychotherapy approaches and creative writing ideas. And we'll talk a bit more about that at the end if we've got time. And then finally, participants made something. They could choose any aspect of the day that may have struck them the most and just do whatever they want with that. They could write a poem, draw something, collage something, just have a chat, like whatever. They could just do whatever. Anything that helps them sort of explore something in their own way. And after the event, participants completed a survey, and we used their responses alongside their creative outputs to measure the impact of the event. So how did it go? It went really well, I think, yeah. All of our 3 goals were met. People's isolation was reduced. They made a lot of new connections with each other. Many have stayed in touch. One person had never joined any queer outing before. They were quite early on in their trans journey and were questioning. They didn't know what pronouns they wanted anyone to use for them. And they seemed very physically anxious throughout the first half of this event. But by the end, they sort of really loosened up a bit. And they also attended our queer hiking group winter party in December. And they were just having the time of their life. Oh, that's great. So yeah, they're engaged and they're connected, which was lovely. The second goal of engaging with nature, people said they felt safer being outdoors in a collective. They didn't have to be hyper aware of their reception, how people were perceiving them potentially, or how they thought people were perceiving them. And they could, forget about all of that and just be in nature together. And lastly, they did report increased feelings of belonging. Their artwork and survey responses showed great engagement with this prehistory, also their trans power. And everyone stayed after the event had finished just to try on the headdress. And you're all very welcome to do that after this. So yeah, just some quotes. which were all really wonderful to see. Somebody said that they felt more comfortable with their identity, knowing it was an entirely natural thing. Someone felt the headdress was very moving, dispelled myths about the binary separation of humans and nature. Someone had an emotional response, which they said they rarely feel in a traditional museum gallery context. Someone said they just really enjoyed spending time with other trans people, and they enjoyed having the time to pay attention to the woods. Someone else, which I just think this is lovely, said the woods always feels like home. It doesn't matter which woods you go to, it just feels safe there. And that's really interesting because it shows they've already got this connection with the natural world. It's just the other stuff gets in the way. And lastly, the storytelling was a helpful tool to help people engage with this stuff. So yeah, nearing the end here, but these are things I would still like to learn as I continue the research project, hopefully into a PhD. The longevity of the impact, you know, how long does this have an impact? Can it become some sort of event series? How can I build on this to keep that going, that kind of thing? Staying connected, as I said, some people have stayed in touch, but I didn't create any container or way for people to do that. So if someone was particularly shy, they might not have felt able to do that themselves. So maybe that's something I'll try to do next time. And wider impact, I think this is a really obvious one, but this would be probably quite useful information to share with cisgender people and people who might be, you know, believing a lot of these stories that they're reading in the press all the time. That's going to stop all the hostility coming over, right? But we've focused on trans folks at this stage because they really feel like the people who need it the most. But I would love to expand it out. What time are we on? Does anyone know? Sorry, just got to see.
16:57. So that's half an hour.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Well, we're at the end, but I was just going to do a quick activity if anyone would like to. It's a little part of the day that we did. It's mindfulness activity. You don't have to move. You don't have to look at anyone or engage with anyone in any way, and I won't make you write a poem. Okay. So if you're interested in doing this, you're very welcome to join in. If you don't want to, you're very welcome not to. That's absolutely fine. But what I'd like you to do, if you are interested, is just have a think about what you've heard about today. And if there's either of these lovely artifacts that speak a bit to you, maybe just have a little look at them and see if you're sat in a place where you can easily see the artifact. I'll need you to make eye contact with the artifact at some point. So make sure you can just see that. Okay. And so I'd like you now to close your eyes. And we're going to settle back into our bodies. We're going to take a deep breath in over 4. We're going to hold it and we're going to breathe out over 4. And I'll guide you through that. Okay. So we're going to inhale together over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to hold it. And we're going to exhale over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do that one more time. Inhaling over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. And exhale over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now open your eyes, please. And I want you to make eye contact with either of these artifacts that spoke to you the most today. You can do that on the screen, or if you're close enough, the artifact at the front of the room. Now we're going to ask the artifact a question. And let's just see if an answer arises. So internally, please address the artifact directly and ask it, what makes you powerful? Asking the artifact, what makes you powerful? If nothing comes up, that's totally fine. The important thing is asking the question. Okay. And now I want you to close your eyes again. I want you to think of a time of transformation in your life. Perhaps it was changing your career, deciding to have a family or deciding not to have a family. Maybe a time when you stopped masking, or a time when you finally let yourself ask for help. Maybe it was a time when you chose to embrace a part of yourself that you may have previously repressed, whatever type of part of yourself that was. So whatever it is, find something within yourself that represents a form of your own personal transformation. And now you're going to open your eyes again, please, and make eye contact with your artifact again. We're going to ask it just one last question. Please ask the artifact, what do you think makes me powerful? Asking the artifact, what do you think makes me powerful? And again, it's okay if nothing comes up right now. Answers come when they're ready. It's the asking that matters. Okay, thank you. We're going to just maybe shimmy it out. Just shimmy it out a bit. Back in the room. So thanks for taking part in that. We each carry around stories of ourselves that we think is the truth. And accepting transformation means we can change that story for ourselves. Now, for people who must daily confront their difference in any way in this country, gender or otherwise, those personal narratives can be particularly painful. And activities like this can give people a space to reframe those narratives into something positive. And for trans folks in particular, hopefully help them start to dislodge any internal transphobia that they might feel. So I think that's it. Did I do anything else? Oh, yeah. I hope you've enjoyed the talk today. Over the next couple of years, as I say, I'm hoping to expand this project, keep it going. At the moment, I'm very Yorkshire-based, but would love to spread out further. So if there's any queer organisations, communities, university groups that you would think would be interested in doing something like this together, holler them my way, send them my website, whatever you like. That would be wonderful. Yes, thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone online? You'll let me know. Fantastic. Any questions? Oh, yeah.
Maybe I didn't catch this, but what's your training and academic background? Because you're bringing in psychology, archaeology, mindfulness practice, all this kind of stuff. So where does that all come from, and how does it inform what you do?
Sure, thank you. So I'm quite new to archaeology, but the rest of it I've been doing a long time, I guess, in my own different weird ways. I used to work for a psychotherapy organization, and I'm not a psychotherapist, but was learning certain approaches through working with the psychotherapists there, reading a lot of their work. That's sort of where that edge comes from. I've also had an astonishing amount of therapy myself, and have found things that have helped me. A part of why I'm very careful to say people can opt out or not take part is because it should definitely be something that they want to do, and I don't want to impose my ways upon it. But that's where that stuff comes from. My background is in creative writing, so my undergrad was a creative writing degree, and I've written a novel and had poetry published and things like that. And it was actually coming upon the star car headdresses in a novel I was writing that helped me come out to myself, because I didn't know why I found this so fascinating, this stuff, for so long. I was really tunneling on it. And then my protagonist became non-binary after hanging out with these dark hairdressers for a long time. I was like, oh, hang on, I think that's me. So it's really like the research project is probably like, I've got this stuff, I've got this experience, and I've been speaking with people who know their stuff better than I know it. These things have worked for me, but I've got no idea if they're going to work for anyone else. So the research project was really an invitation to see, like, what does work, and is it just me living in my own little head, or can this help other people in whatever way? Does that answer your question? Okay. Thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions? Yep.
This is slightly tangential. Sorry, it's not really about your project.
It's okay.
It's about the term god dollies.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think of that term? Because I kind of think it's not a great term for a whole lot of reasons. I've not heard it before.
Yeah. That's a bit grimmo. Yeah.
But it's sort of infantilizing.
Oh, interesting. Why do you say that?
It's just the word dolly.
Oh, dolly. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
gods, and also I'm not a British prehistorian at all.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it, but just interested in what you thought of it.
Weirdly, the dolly didn't bother me too much. I didn't like this. Yeah, no, I hear you. I found the god more annoying, because we have no idea what they're for. Obviously, we talked about how they're little boundary markers maybe, or apotropaic in landscapes that are maybe challenging, hard to cross safely. But we can't call that God. I don't know, there's something weird about that for me. But dollies, I don't know, weirdly it didn't bother me, but I'd love to hear your opinion on that. Yeah.
Just the very word makes me slightly ill.
I know, yeah. Yeah.
Is one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose other ones are called something idle, and I don't know how I feel about that either.
Well, exactly. I'm not sure what good. I mean, dolly, also 60s slang for dolly bird.
What's dolly bird?
You're not. Oh, you're too young.
Oh, I see. That, yeah.
Hot young thing about town, usually female.
I see. Yeah. No, I didn't know about that. But yeah, I mean,
dolly bird.
I don't know why they can't just say figure. I don't know. But yeah, it's a term archaeologists decided upon, and it's just kept going.
Weirdly, so if you do more sort of British prehistory, maybe challenge it a bit.
Could do, mate. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'll try. I'll try my luck. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Any online?
We have some comments.
Oh, we have comments. Okay. Down for this. So Amy Arden, it was a brilliant talk. I'm grateful to know that these activities are available. I hope you can keep the good work going.
Thanks, mate.
And Stacey, from KH, this is such an important project. Thank you so much for undertaking it and sharing it today.
Oh, thanks.
And Stacey Baldrick, fantastic talk and hugely significant project with an exclamation mark.
Oh, thank you, Stacey, for the exclamation mark.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that talk. It was absolutely incredible. I really enjoyed you talking about the process of making, and I wondered if you or anybody else had tried making, I know you said you commissioned an artist, but
yeah,
tried making one of these figures or god dollies or what we want to call them, specifically with the beaver mandible tool.
Oh my god, yeah.
The way that you spoke about that was really interesting to me. I wondered if you had any thoughts about trying that, giving it a go.
That would be amazing. I'd probably engage someone who knows what they're doing and get them to lead it. But yeah, that would be cool. So Jason Turpin, who made this, he's a local Sheffield sculptor, and he got really into this. So like, he went to the museum in Hull, where you can see the real ones, and like studied Iron Age techniques, did all these things. But yeah, it would be super cool to see if we can do that as a group, you know, bringing some of the crafting. I think there was one project at the Uni of York a while ago, don't quote me on the year at all. I think the project paper is called Craftwell, and it was all about engaging folks in prehistoric craft making at their year centre, where they've sort of built a Mesolithic kind of village. And so, yeah, invite people to come down and do that. And then, yeah, you're sort of using the experimental archaeologists there to sort of support that. Yeah, it would definitely be cool. Definitely. Thank you.
We have another comment. Oh, question. Sorry,
Ooh,
do apologize.
No, please.
So this is from Naomi. Brilliant talk! Exclamation mark. Do you think you'd look to go beyond prehistory to other time periods where these binary narratives are persistent when there's lots of evidence to the contrary?
Oh, that's so interesting. I would probably love to do that in about 20 years' time when I'm done. I think prehistory is exciting specifically for two reasons. What a broad term, but one is we don't know stuff, and people weren't leaving notes for us to read. So there's so much space in there for people to explore without being told they're wrong. I think that's super important. And the second one is, it's that ancient thing. It's this whole idea of we've always been this way. You weirdos, you're not part of our society. But it's really 11,000 years old, guys. Like, there's lots going on, you know. So I think just maybe for the pow effect of the proposal, the longer you go back, the more entrenched it might feel in the landscape. So that's a reason for prehistory for me. Yeah.
Anyone else? You're good. Well, thank you so much for both our speaker and everybody here and online for attending. I do have a few upcoming events to announce. So most importantly is the PGR conference on Friday. That's going to be at Bob Burgess. Which room is it? 003, be there, be square, either online or in person. We also have next week Dr. Trish Beers from the University of Cambridge for Wednesday seminar. So that will be the 4th of March, I do apologise, with Body Parts and Human Hearts, Collection Management and the Heritage of Death in the United Kingdom. And I will also shout out when I can find it. There should be museum studies are having one tomorrow with Luciana. This is why I should try these before I say them. Luciana Menezes de Carvalho. I do apologise. They are the vice chair of ICOM Brazil. And they're looking at a museology that's not life-oriented or not worthy, convergences between museum studies and social museology. That's at Bob Burgess tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Otherwise, it's hybrid. I believe that's everything I need to shout out. Okay, thank you so much again, SK. It was amazing. And if we want to carry on the conversation, we're going to go to the Clarendon, which is across Vicky Park, just up London Road, and then left just after the Everest Pharmacy. So please do join us there if you wish to. Again, if you're hybrid and you want to come in, obviously you're more than welcome. But yes, thank you so much, and I'll see you all next week.